Marshall trying to be creative. Instead, it falls to Lockie Neal, and eventually something had to give. And it's their superstar, Lions on the board. Really owned it, except for St Kilda taking some half chances. Stocker turned the body side on to win the ball.
He might have popped his shoulder here or collarbone.
Lohman, arm looks to be okay. Gets it to his mate in Morris, around the body. He makes no mistake. Well, he's a class youngster. The trap from Bailey was good. The sidestep and fend off. This could be some sort of goal. This could be some sort of point. They were always going to respond like the great side they are. And they put St Kilda to the sword.
The Brisbane Lions Fancast is back with JB and Patrick, all thanks to Hop On Brewery Tours and Crisp Communications. The Brisbane Lions are 6-1 and are sitting pretty in the top 4 of the AFL ladder. A big response after a pretty humiliating performance last Easter Thursday. I'm going to say it was almost comprehensive, this game against St Kilda. It was certainly our best 4-quarter effort, but still there was room for improvement, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as the show goes on. Patrick, how did you see it?
Up until like the last 15 minutes, pretty bloody good. Pretty bloody good.
Yeah, there was some junk time goals from the Saints there in the end, and they got a bit of a run on early in the third, but we did peg it back and managed to win that quarter as well. That's what I mean. It was almost comprehensive. Inaccuracy was a big one for us, including Zach Bailey's point of the year. You could tell he was getting ahead of himself as that play was unfolding, and then the smile after he shanked it at the very end there. But look, not too much to complain about with this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the guys had a pretty good game, and some of the guys had a less good game, and certain Kai Lohmans had a game he'll once again wish to forget.
He's had
having two
horrid run. I saw it
described beautifully. He had 2 right shoulders for a second. So, and I also liked Dicko on commentary saying that he was looking like he was carrying a newspaper around under one arm for most of, I think, the third quarter. I wish we'd pulled the trigger a little bit earlier on.
I don't know why they persisted with him for so long when he was clearly hampered with that, collarbone, shoulder, whatever it was. I don't know why they let him run around for so long when you could have got Jimmy in the game.
Yeah, I don't understand that. We're probably getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because selection was more or less kind of what we expected. Just,
yep.
I think I said that when Lohman is fit, he will come back in. Who he came back in for was the unfortunate Sam Marshall, who didn't do a lot wrong in his half a quarter.
I know. I did, as I posted on our Twitter feed, I felt a bit sorry for him. He gets 10 minutes of getting smoked by Collingwood and then gets dropped. It's a bit unfortunate for him, but yeah, he played well in the test.
Dropped is a bit of a tough one, It's almost, I feel like there should be a little asterisk next to the idea of being omitted or dropped if you've been the sub, You're kind of right there. But he'll get his chance later in the season. He showed that he has good composure on the ball, but that was last week. Tunstall was the sub, and
then our late change.
The late change.
Yeah, Jack Payne out, and Darcy Gardner comes in for his first game since his ACL, which sort of, as Fague said in the press conference, kind of a nice thing. He didn't have time to sort of overthink about it, stress it. It's sort of like, all right, well, you're playing today. There was no sort of build-up and tension surrounding it. He just got to sort of play his game. He played his role. He certainly was far from the best game he's ever played, but far from the worst as well.
I didn't think he wasn't noticeably off the pace whatsoever, in my opinion. I thought he did things largely pretty well. They have a couple of weapons, St Kilda, strangely enough. Some people where you're like, oh, well, watch out for them, but there were some that were pretty quiet. Jack Higgins was the only one that really probably got the better of his man. Noah Answorth having been quite good last week.
Yeah.
Sort of lowered his colours a little bit, which was a bit unfortunate. But it is a good reminder that Darcy Gardner is there and is, going... Yeah, he's been playing forward. Or has he been playing forward this year? I don't know.
He's only played maybe even one VFL game, maybe 2, but I think he's maybe only even played the one game in the VFL and he played forward. So, it would have been a bit of an adjustment because before his knee last year as well, he played almost exclusively forward. So to suddenly go down back, like obviously he's got plenty of experience down back, but he hasn't played there for, I guess, 2 years, give or take. So yeah, a bit of a change of pace.
I don't think you forget things like that.
No.
You know, if you're someone who's played as many games as he had, particularly, you would probably assume it's quite a stable backline around him. You know, It was quite familiar having Harris and even Noah Answorth, who was in the team kind of in 2019 and 2020, sort of those times.
And Froggy, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So familiar and was a good platform for him to have a good return game. Nice to see him playing. He looks literally the same. I don't know why I would expect him not to look the same, but he's basically looked the same his entire career except for his first game in that. And we've all seen that video, the Premiership one, where they show him in his first game and he's just like, who is that guy?
Yeah.
So it is quite good. But yeah, across the game, first quarter, Brooksy, what happened?
Look, first of all, I was pretty happy to hear during Fags' press conference throughout the week that team defense was sort of priority number one for us because, you know, we've spoken about on the show, you know, our defensive spread and intent has been lacking, and he said as much in that press conference. He said usually it's the first thing to go when your attitude's not quite right. So I was pretty happy to hear that was on the menu for this week during training, and it was there. Like, it was there more or less all game, and it was certainly there in that first quarter that what we spoke about last week, 28 tackles in a game of footy against Collingwood, and we eclipsed that in the first half of footy this week. The midfield unit really stepped up this week as well. Contest and clearance was much, much better. But probably the tale of the first half is we really should have put more punishment on the board. Like 26-6 inside 50s or whatever it was in that first quarter. You know, scoring shots compared to St Kilda's clearance. All those numbers were so far in the green for us. Couldn't quite finish off our good work, and that we really... we didn't leave the door open for them. It was sort of never in doubt, and they were never really in the game, but we could have basically won that game nice and early.
We certainly could have. I certainly remember the first, I want to say 10, 15 minutes just were absolute... The ball was just in their forward 50 the whole time.
Yeah. And
we kicked, 4 or 5 behinds before Lachie Neale kicked the first goal of the game. And it was just like, put the ball in the goal. Put the ball in the goal. And they obviously eventually did, but... Far out it took a bit, and then I think we were looking pretty comfortable that first quarter until they went coast to coast with just sort of what I thought was a free kick, an arm chop. Or no, Barry got hit in the head.
Yeah.
Barry got hit across the head. So, and they had a walk-in goal, which was a little bit annoying because you see the amount of effort, and I think we only went in maybe 2 kicks up. I'm trying to load up my iPad, just... no battery, so I'm trying to charge it. I'm trying to do about 7 things at once here. Level of professionalism, but
so 4 goals,
on the whole,
4 goals 6 to 2 goals straight at quarter time we were, so 30-12.
Yeah, so we were definitely in the ascendancy, but I think, as you said, we more or less could have been quite a bit more ahead. And I think on the whole, that first quarter, it was just good to see a level of intent from them.
Yeah,
you know, the team defense, I think. Which I've just done it. I've said defense, which is one of my pet peeves, is the fact that the word defense has become defense due to the Americanization of it all. So our team defense was much better. And yeah, it was good to watch because I think for the first 3 quarters, including the little run they got on at the beginning of the third, it much more looked like how we were and our best footy was last year. You know, we've seen really good periods in games. The third quarter against Geelong, the third and fourth quarter against the Bulldogs, but they were kind of more that mental mental final style play that we were sort of just operating in bursts. Whereas I think it was a much more sustainable game model. in the first 3 quarters, and it really put us into a position where we were never ever going to lose that game. It didn't matter how many goals they kicked in the last quarter.
I think what the fuck was I going to say right there? I had it right there. It was interesting to see Windhager go to McCluggage first off the bat. I mean, I think we all assumed he would go straight to Neil, and Lockie and Jack Steele sort of went head-to-head across the day, and we'll talk about how that ended up. Will Ashcroft obviously bounced back, as did Dane Zorko after a fairly poor week. But, yeah, after quarter time, Windhager sort of ran with Rayner, because I think Rayner had a pretty impactful first quarter without doing huge amounts. He was pretty good in the first quarter, faded for a bit, sort of bobbed up late in the piece as well. He had a fair amount of it in the last quarter as well, but it was very strange to see Marcus Windhager not go straight to Lockie Neal, and I'm sure Lockie Neal was pretty happy to see that as well.
I think historically McCluggage has had quite a few 3-vote games against St Kilda.
Yeah.
I said last week that I thought that we hadn't lost to St Kilda down there for 7 years, and I went back and looked, and yeah, the last time we lost to St Kilda down at Marvel was 2018 in round 1, I think. Cam Rayner's first game.
I remember that horrible game.
It wasn't that bad. We only lost by about, I think, 4 goals.
But it was a horrible game of footy. It was a horrible game of footy.
But since then, yeah, we played them, I think, in 4 of the past 6 years down there, and we've won them.
Yeah, I think they beat us up at Metricon, as it was at the time, in 21 or something. They got us there.
Yeah, that doesn't count. Okay. Just like Melbourne's premiership doesn't count. So, no, just buy some strays while I'm at it.
I thought Cal Archie did a reasonable job on Sinclair down back. It wasn't, as tight a work as he's done, and obviously the guys were trying to get Cal Archie a goal as all game, and he sprayed a couple of, and luckily he got that free kick at the end there that finally got him a goal in his 150th. So that sort of crept up on me, Cal Archie's 150th. It's sort of like, didn't really hear about until early on last week, sort of maybe Monday, Tuesday. It's like, oh, by the way, it's Cal Archie's 150th this week.
Well, I think given that I'm kind of operating on a little bit less football media this year, it crept up on me until he had his kid. So I was like, oh, good for him. I was like, oh, how many games? 200? 150? 150. Beautiful. Obviously played, was it 45 for the Suns?
I think so, yeah, give or take, yeah.
Yeah, round about that. So, yeah, he's played a good amount of footy for us, and I think he's... there's not a lot that we can say about Callum Archie that hasn't been said before. And it's, kind of widely known it was a bit of a slow start. He was a bit of a stick with this. And they said it quite nicely on commentary, actually, where they said that he was very talented and very skilled, so much so that he didn't really demand a position. They were able to sort of just chop and change and put him everywhere, which I don't think lent it, we seen with Ryan Lester, the whole front half of his career, he was put all over the place and he was patchy. But as soon as they both got given a job that they wanted to do, they became really invaluable contributors and really important players. I said last year, I talked about a few glue players, and I've noticed that Nathan Buckley has started stealing that term. So he's obviously an avid listener.
Yeah, well, Bucks.
I don't think I've heard anyone else. Yeah. Toot my own horn there. But yeah, Callum Archie, really, really happy that I don't really give a shit about his Gold Coast games, but glad he got to 105 odd games with us.
Yeah, very much so. What did you make of the commentary lineup for Fox? Because I thought it was one of the worst we've had.
Unpopular, didn't really bother me.
Really?
Didn't really bother me.
Lee Montagna, Dermy.
Montagna's so nothing that it's just white noise.
I know,
but
just anyone with blonde hair, he just called Ashcroft. Like the amount of times he called Jasper Fletcher Ashcroft was so infuriating. And then you got Brownie, who is, club legend, captain, on Mount Rushmore of Brisbane Lions, who said Jackson Payne and Noah Ainsworth. And you're like, come on, man. Like, come on. Like, Ben Dixon was the best thing about that commentary lineup for me.
Yeah, I mean, Dermot Brereton's always I find him funny, but that's because I'm probably a bit of a similar ilk in terms of my insane ramblings that he does, where he'll just pull stuff out of his hole, as you would say, that have very little to do and very vague, degrees of separation. So it didn't grate on me the way that I know I'm digging myself in a massive hole here.
Yeah,
so I'm just going to stop talking.
No, go on. It's too late now. Keep digging.
No. Well, to put it this way, I just come from watching Geelong and Carlton, and Dwayne Russell is very annoying. Love Dwayne's World. Can't stand him as a caller.
Yeah, no. You're not alone on that one, that's for sure. Hey, I do want to give out, because he has failed to get a vote for me, and it may not be the case for you, but Eric Hipwood has put together 3 pretty good weeks of footy. And he kicked 3 goals on his right shoe.
Yeah, it kind of harps back to that the questionable, is Eric Hipwood actually right-footed, but it convinced himself to be left-footed, post that I saw, 7 weeks ago. But no, I think he moved in a way that was much more free than I've seen him, even in the past few weeks. You know, the mark that he took on the ground, kind of lunging for it, the chest mark, he's not taken that mark 3 weeks ago, because I don't think he had the confidence in his body. And I don't know a lot about OP, but I think it is the sort of thing where it can linger, and, you just have to recover and get that confidence back. And it should be reinforcing to him every week that he can physically compete. So if he plays like that, if he plays the way that he has in the past, 3 games for the remainder of his career, that's amazing. Yeah. He'll end up with more goals than Gary Lyon. So would love to see it.
I know the umpiring has been a bit of a talking point coming out of this game. Did you think, especially in that last half, we got the rub of the green?
Hard to say. There were a lot of throws, weren't there?
There was a few. And I think, obviously that Ashcroft holding the ball that didn't get called that led to Chucky Neal's third huge goal from the 50. That was a balls up from the umpires there. But I thought, all in all, maybe we got a few of the 50-50s that went our way in crucial moments, and a lot of them did lead to goals as well.
As I said last week, the insipid umpiring would not have stopped us from getting belted, and I don't think that it would be fair to say that it made much of a difference on the result.
No, you're probably right there as well, for sure.
I think one thing I will say actually is that although there were probably some marginal calls, as much as I enjoyed it, the Fremantle Adelaide game was absolutely over umpired, amazingly so. There were nearly 55 free kicks or something. I checked, and it was 29 all. God. And it was just whistle after feckin' whistle. So I was happy to see them put away said whistle a little bit in our game. Have you also noticed the amount of times the P is missing from the whistle this season? I've noticed it almost every round where umpires are getting around with no P in their whistle.
Can't say that I've noticed that, no.
Okay, well, that's me in my Dermot Brereton mode. Brooksy, have you noticed the P's and the whistles are deteriorating quicker?
What did you make of Oscar's game? Because normally he's got a fairly handy record against Rowan Marshall. I thought it was a little bit evened up this week. I thought Rowan not necessarily got the better of him, but certainly put in a better performance.
I think after the 2 weeks that Oscar's had, it was a step forward in Oscar's form, I would say.
Yeah.
Because I think Oscar's been a little bit down on form, not so much in terms of he's still kicked a couple of goals in the past few weeks, but his ruck work hasn't quite been, it's almost like the ones where he's the 10-foot drop from the ball to his peg, they're happening slower than they used to. He's sort of not clearing the pack the way that he kind of has done previously. And whether that's a directive or whether it's because we've got a fantastic midfield group that should be getting the ball out and winning clearance without him, completely having not looked at any of the clearance numbers, I would say his clearance numbers would be down on his own form from any other season.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that St Kilda did do quite well off the back of last week is they did sort of gum up the corridor quite a bit, and our ball movement was not quite as electric as we've known it to be. So that is going to be something moving forward that you can imagine teams are going to try and do for us, is try and go up that corridor as much as they possibly can, and we're going to have to adapt. The good thing is it's happened early in the season, so we've got plenty of footy to try and figure out new ways to move the ball if the corridor is taken away from us. I understand it's probably easier at Marvel as well, smaller ground and what have you, but yeah.
I think what's happening is because strategically we're at a little bit of a, we've struggled a bit with our key forwards taking kind of contested marks and things like that. The out kick is not really happening, and it certainly wasn't happening last week. It's happening a little bit more as we went, but I think they just need to. It's kind of in combination with the rule change, the 15-meter thing. Which can we kind of put that at a direct diss on our style of play? They've seen us, they've seen Collingwood the year before, like the uncontested, kind of kicking through teams. Why would they do that? They're arguably creating a game with more stoppage. Yeah,
they do it every. The one I can't get behind, and I've been meaning to talk about this on the show for like a year now, is they try and change the rules to keep the ball moving as much as possible. But they went back on remember the rule where if you grabbed it out of the ruck and got tackled, like doesn't matter, it's holding the ball. Why did they change that? If that's so like anti what they've been trying to achieve in getting the ball moving forward and holding the ball quicker and all that sort of stuff, but they changed that. It's very strange. I
don't understand, because that leads to like repeat stoppage. And I say it again because it's just literally what I've been watching. But watching Carlton and Geelong, Carlton were getting absolutely slaughtered out of stoppage. They won their game off turnover, which is a problem in and of itself. But Geelong was smashing them in stoppage. And as soon as they kind of, about 3 goals in the last quarter, they just gummed up the stoppage and were just taking the ball out of the ruck and causing repeat stoppage. And it was so easy to do. It's so easy to manipulate and do it in a way that the guys just jump on the ball. I thought jumping on the ball was holding the ball.
Yep.
Taking it out of the ruck should be holding the ball, because that's all they like. It's not just them. It's anybody who's trying to slow down the game. And I would do it too.
Of course.
Categorically. But the ability to create a stoppage mess is almost like easier than the Paul Roos days, because just don't do anything wrong. Don't hit anyone in the head and you're fine.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah, I don't understand why that's changed. I don't understand that they've kind of created all these things. They've created 666, they've created the stand rule, which I think are good for the game unpopularly. But then what you want people to do with the stand rule is not kick a 60-meter pass infield into the corridor. That's insane. Like, there's about 3 people that could do that. You're trying to promote short passing, and so I don't know. It just seems to be a little bit they don't know what they're trying to make this game.
Yeah. I mean, there is always rules brought in against the defending premier, I find, just under the guise of equalisation. It's like, all right, well, you've done it that way. We can't have you just do that again. So we're going to have to tie a hand behind your back and see if you can still do it. So maybe that's a result of the short 15-meter kicks and all that sort of stuff. But generally speaking, I think it's better for the game. But it is getting to the point now where it's like clearly kicks that are 20, 25 meters are getting called play on, which is silly.
I'll make a weird comparison here. I play a lot of tabletop games.
Sure.
Probably unsurprising to some, but surprising to others. I'll probably get absolutely murdered for this. But there's a lot of people that mess with rules in these games. And I think the best games are games where the rules haven't been touched in like 20 years, and they exist, and it's like a great platform to play a game. Whereas as soon as they get in there and start changing rules every 3 months, no one knows what the hell's going on. And it's exactly what's happening with football, where people don't know what the rules of the game are that are playing the game. We've heard players say it. We've heard umpires say it. We've heard coaches say it. I can't understand it. So, yeah, it's insane to me.
Yeah, I understand that. Anyway, let's get back to our game. Sam Day, what did you think of his game? I think he's been steadily improving, and he's consistent without being like a really good solid key forward that you can hang your hat on, because there's still talk about maybe we should bring Darcy Ford in, maybe once Henry Smith gets another run at it, maybe he's the guy to come in. Is Ty Gallup doing enough? Because he's because on the weekend, no Henry Smith, no Darcy Ford in the VFL. Ty Gallup was actually doing a bit of ruck work as well, so maybe that's something to look further down the line. I think he's down the pecking order a little bit. But I still think Sam Day is steadily improving. He creates contests. He does bring the ball to ground. He's, slow moving. Uses the ball okay. Like his field kicking's fine. Finds himself in good positions. I think he's getting better.
If he plays the way that he did last week, and even in the Collingwood game, I don't have a problem with him at this point in the team's development, which sounds weird because we've just won a premiership, but the evolution of the team naturally has to change when you lose Joe Danaher. So, if you look at it back to 2019 and when Oscar McInerney came to the team, he was playing predominantly as a forward, pinch hitting the ruck. Now, he wouldn't have been able to do that without Steph Martin. And I think when he was doing that, Big O, he would have been older than Henry Smith is at the moment. So I think if Henry Smith can maybe do it in the second half of the season, I think that succession plan would work better. Probably better than Ken Hinkley and Carr,
Sure.
I would say.
All right, we will save our chat about Charlie Cameron for listener questions, because there is a fair amount of questions about Charlie Cameron that have floated through, which I guess is understandable with his form at the moment. What I will say is if he had kicked 3 goals, 1, we wouldn't have any questions, really, I would have thought.
No.
I
and we can save it, but for people that are saying, should he have a run in the twos, I would say absolutely not. Because certain people don't really like being dropped. I'm one of those people. I don't like being... If I got dropped, I'd be like, nah, I'm injured, and wouldn't play until I was back in the first team, which probably wouldn't happen. So, am I petulant? Yes. But I just think certain people...
Okay.
It doesn't work. That doesn't work. So...
All right, well, in the meantime, unless there's anything else you want to chat about this game, let's head to some votes, thanks to hop on brewerytours.com.au. I always go first.
Just before you go, is Moddy in your votes?
He is.
Okay, well, cool. I was going to talk about him.
Well,
you go first, because I haven't thought about my votes. So,
well, this was last week was tough. This week was tough as well, because I did kind of want to squeeze maybe like 5 players into the votes. As I said, Eric Hipwood is very, very unlucky not to get 1, even 2 votes this week, because I thought he had a brilliant game. Will Ashcroft is another one that unlucky to miss out on a vote here. I thought he was really good. Levi was really good as well. Missed 2 shots on goal, which could have been really important for him as well. But he's putting together a really nice, solid season.
I thought I was astounded because I watched the game slightly delayed, so I wasn't able to keep up to date with the stats, which I always find is a good way to watch football anyway. But I was astounded when I checked afterwards and saw that Will Ashcroft had like 35.
Yeah. And
I thought Levi had a really good game.
Yeah.
Not comparing them, but I thought the disposals that he had were, I think, a little bit more damaging than Will's.
Yeah.
And I thought it was Levi's best game for us. And I really wanted to give him a vote, but I wanted to give someone else a vote. So.
And Hugh McCluggage.
What are your votes?
Yeah, Hugh McCluggage as well had a really good game. He did get tagged. Finished with lower numbers than we would know, but as Fags mentioned in his press conference, like what he did with the ball was quality as well. And his body position, like the way he and Bailey's doing a little bit more this year as well, is like at the right moment, if there's a 50-50, like a one-on-one going for the ball, he knows how to position himself and get his opponent out of the way and put himself in a better position to then use the footy. And like I'm seeing that more and more from Hugh. And of course his tackling, as we said, has gone through the roof over the last 18 months as well. All right, my votes, Monty does get the 1, Zach Bailey the 2, and Chalky Neal the 3.
Cool. I was going to say, Moddy's turning into this like sweeper intercept king. And I reckon that would be Moddy's first 30 disposal game. I don't know. But
I mean, he might have had 1 or 2 others, but yeah, that was, recency bias and everything. It was a really, really good game. And what he did with the ball was good as well.
My votes, I've got Jared Berry with 1 because I thought he had a much better game than was given any credit for.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I love it when he kicks a goal. It's like him kicking a goal is up there with like, there's players you'd love to see kick a goal. Most people would be Charlie Cameron at the moment. Mine's Jared Berry. Every time Jared Berry kicks a goal, it's like, oh, love it. Absolutely love it. 2 is Eric and 3 is Neil because, Neil just completely toyed with him, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean...
Back to his best.
Yeah, I mean, very similar to us last week where I said we didn't pay any respect to Nick Dacos. They sort of didn't do that with Lachie Neale and, not his best game numbers wise, but score involvements, direct goal assists were through the roof, and not his best clearance game either. But not only did he affect the scoreboard through his possessions, he kicked 3 goals himself, including that absolute bomb from 50 that we spoke about a little bit earlier. Definitely one of his better games. Yeah,
look, 3 goals and however many touches he got, that's getting you the votes.
Yeah, 100%. So. Bales was good, and he's making a case for, one of the better small forwards this year with his work across the
Well, it was interesting to see between him and Higgins. It was kind of 2 different sides of the small forward criteria. You had Higgins that was just pure goal sneak and really did well with not much.
Yeah.
And I thought Bailey was really good. He was a bit stiff to miss out on votes, but for me, his work around the ball and it's like he's learned to use his body a lot better, as you're saying with Hugh.
Yeah.
Him and Rayner are just 2 battering rams that just run around and just get out of their way. You wouldn't want to go near them.
Pulled off another successful fend, which is, I don't think he's been, I shouldn't say it, well, touching wood as I say this, I don't think he's been done by the fend this year so far. He's actually been fairly successful with them. And as you said, Wilmot, how good was his game? Just like the amount of possessions he got in that sort of 70 metres from the defensive goal and then, would gain 30 or 40 metres every time he got the ball and then maybe run on and get another possession in the chain. He had a down week a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember, maybe against the Dogs, potentially. It was probably one of his poorer games. But he's continuing on as well with his form.
Yeah, he was good. And it's also great to hear, virtually every game, the height of his kicks always get mentioned. So, happened again.
I know you were.
It was good.
Bang on about Jared Berry as well, and I thought, especially in that first and second quarter, he was definitely one of our best on. His work rate is just so immense.
Yeah, he's occasionally going to mung one, particularly if he's working on the wing on his left or whatever. But yeah, he works hard and. I don't know. I like to see him enjoying his football. People talking about all Australian form at the moment is kind of funny and it's insane because you can say it about anybody. But he's had a good start to the season, Jared Berry. Yeah, but definitely. I don't think that my prediction from this year will probably happen because it's not the kind of player that gets attention for that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, and Eric, we already sort of touched on him a little bit before when I said, he was stiff to miss out on my votes. But yeah, 3 really good weeks. And it was funny because that game against the Bulldogs where he kicked 5 in that second half and I didn't give him a vote. And I said, I feel bad because I may not give him another vote this year. And, the 2 games immediately after, he's, you've given him 7 votes. He's unlucky for me as well. I've only given him the 2 across the last 3 weeks, which is definitely unders. But yeah.
Well, last week was like, what's the opposite of shooting fish in a barrel? Catching birds in the sky. Like, that seems pretty hard.
Yeah.
So, Eric is putting together a good stretch of football. So that's great. It's good for us.
Yeah, it definitely is, because, this forward line where it is still figuring itself out, and I've seen people across various social media pages saying we're playing 2 forwards down at the moment with Sam Day and Charlie Cameron due to their lack of... And I think it's just like scoreboard impact. Like, unless they're kicking goals, people see them as useless. And as we know, there's a lot more that goes into it, and Charlie's defensive accountability is certainly one of those as well. But quick talk about...
Can I ask you a question before you go on? This is just a general question. I've got the calculator out, so shit's going to get real here.
Jesus.
Let's just go through and go, on a good game, how many goals would this player kick? Just play a nice, simple game. So Eric Hipwood, how many goals would constitute a good game for him?
If he kicks 3, you'd be pretty happy.
3?
I'd say it's a good game.
How many would we want? Would we want Day to kick in a good game?
I'd be happy if he kicked 2 at the moment.
2. Charlie Cameron, 4, 5.
Yeah, 4.
4.
Yeah.
Zach Bailey,
3.
3. Cam Rayner, how many for Cam Rayner?
2.
2. Callum Archie, how many would he kick?
2 to 3. Yeah, 2 to 3.
2 or 3. Kyle Lohman, how many would you want him to kick? 3.
2 to 3.
Logan Morris, 2.
Yeah.
The collective midfield, 5.
Oh no, that's a bit much.
Oh, between Lockie Neal, McCluggage, Ashcroft, Levi Ashcroft,
Dunkley, 3. 5's a bit much for that midfield. Yeah.
Okay, so that would at least give us a score of 144.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just do that example because a lot of the time it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's not the 90s or the 80s anymore where teams are kicking 700 points. So not every player is going to kick good scores every week, even though we'd love them to. So
I mean, just to touch back on that, and things we were talking about earlier in the show, we ended up with 15 more scoring shots than St Kilda. So that 45-point margin coulda, shoulda, woulda been a whole lot more than it was.
Oh man, it absolutely flattered them. Absolutely flattered them. So that's all in the result. But where to next?
All right, well, let's have a quick chat about the Twos, because the Twos had a big win against Sandy by 49 points. It should be said Sandy were very wasteful in front of goals. 5 goals, 14 they ended up on. We were 13-15, so we missed a few that we should have kicked as well. There was a bit of a breeze down at RSCA Park as well, but pick of the bunch was Will McLaughlin, 5 goals, 1, and his work up forward was brilliant. Not just his goal scoring ability, but his marking as well. This was like, we knew we could mark, and Fag said, I wish you got to see what a good mark he is. This was one of those games where he really just made a name for himself. And 5 goals, 1 is going to be hard to pass up. So if Kai's no good to go with that shoulder, Will McLaughlin's coming straight in, and we'll save the Charlie Cameron chat as well. Connor McKenna, really good as well. Played a lot more forward as well. Kicked 2 goals. Dev Robb in the middle, 32 touches, 7 clearances, 7 tackles. Reece Torren as well is putting together a pretty good year this year, getting a lot of midfield time, and his tackling intent was much better as well. Brandon Ryan did a few bits and pieces. I'm not going to worry too much about him. I don't know how many years we gave Brandon Ryan, whether he runs out this year or next year, but whatever it is, he'll be gone.
Your mate Zane Zakostelski apparently had 17 or 18 touches or something.
Yeah, he had a good game as well, as did Luke Beak and my other mate. So the defensive unit was actually pretty good. Shadow Brain played well, as did Dara Joyce. And Luke Lloyd,
Dara Joyce had like 15 marks or something like that.
Yeah, he had a great game.
So it's funny because I remember you last year putting up his stats and going like, who do you reckon this is? And it sounded like Dane Zorko, but it was Dara Joyce.
It's crazy.
So good for him.
Luke Lloyd played down back a bit, which is a bit different. Like, we drafted him as a forward. He's played down back, and I suppose we've got a few more key forwards in that front half now as well. Fergus McFadden didn't necessarily follow up in his big week last week. And Tom Duday is just sort of puttering along at the moment. Another 12 touches, did bits and pieces. I don't think he's going to be playing seniors in the next few weeks unless he has like 2 or 3 games where he really just stands out. Like, I think his leadership is really good in the twos at the moment. But as Fag said, he's going to sort of leave it up to Tom Duday to sort of say when he thinks he's ready and then make the call from there. But it's going to be a tough back line to crack into, as we know.
Well, we've seen with that he's kind of almost playing as a de facto Frog down there.
Yeah.
And we saw what that did for Frog's career. And I'm not saying that, like, Tom Duday's footballing ability needed the kind of shot in the arm that Froggy's did. But it gives him a sense of purpose. I don't think we'll see Duday before the bye, and we've got quite a late bye. I'd be willing to call it pretty early. So, I think
unless there's an injury.
Said well that, yeah, but even then, like, I think if there's an injury to one of Payne, Harris, or Frog, the Gardner comes in, and and even then, like, if it's 50-50, Joyce can come in. I know that will send chills down the spine of some.
Oh, mate, honestly, like, after last year where, we started the year going, oh, how much depth we got in our backline, and then he gets to that Q Clash game and Eric Hipwood's our sole key defender, and you're thinking, what the is going on here? So
Hipwood and Frog, the weird cop duo.
Yeah.
So the eel and the frog, what a bundle of fucking morons. So.
You never know what's going to happen.
I understand what you're saying, but it's just more like, I think Duday is at his own timeline, and I don't have any expectations of him contributing this season. And I don't, like, if he does, great. If he doesn't, it shouldn't really matter. Yeah. We've talked about how, I've talked about how, Levi Ashcroft and Marshall, like, albeit when they were named as subs to debut, they're cracking into a premiership team.
Yeah.
And Duday's no different. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, he's missed so much footy, so yeah, there's no rush on him, as we said. So I think we will see him at some point this year, and we'll have to deal with that when we do. All right, having said that, what changes do you think will be made for this upcoming Q Clash, which is shaping up to be an absolute belter on Sunday night?
Yeah, well, Gold Coast bloody turned it on, didn't they?
Yeah. Did they what?
How many goals in a row did they end up kicking?
12.
I think I checked out at 11. I was like,
12 in a row.
All right, so that might outdo us in the Doggies game for the best run of football. But changes probably just Kai out and McLaughlin in for me.
So the talk is it's a stinger, one of those just, there's no structural damage, tendon damage, anything like that. It's just a heavy hit, and it was a good hit from Liam Stocker. And
yeah, it was. No MRO stuff on that?
Nah, and there shouldn't be. Like, it was a fair hit on the shoulder.
Yeah, I agree. There's some screenshots of him, shoulder to the head contact, but I think that it's one of those ones where I would be absolutely hypocritical if I was like, Stocker's form and his technique there is perfect.
Yeah.
Kai's dangling his head. So don't do that, Kai Lohman.
No. And I don't
lead with your shoulder.
I doubt he will again after that. I'm not sure, because I remember not last year before, he missed the back half with that broken collarbone, and I'm not sure if it was the same side that he got crunched.
So I had this conversation with my partner, and we always go back to the Werribee prelim final where he was sitting next to the bin.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you remember which shoulder it was? And she goes, yeah, it was the same one, because I remember the bin was on the other side. So the immortalized grog next to the bin is just continuing to do God's work, which I love. So
sure. So it is the same shoulder then?
We believe so.
Yeah, okay.
Based on the bin anecdote.
Okay, well, there you go. He might be missing a game. They seem to think he was going to be right in a couple of days and should be fine to play this week, but with the way his season is going, like, God, you just be careful. And when you got Will McLaughlin there, who's coming off an absolute heater in the twos, why not?
Well, there was on comms, was it Dicko that was talking about like the sternum, how that can kind of take a couple of days. I know it's been a couple of days now, but I mean, we'll wait and see the report. Like, I'm sure if he's fine, they'll play him, but erring on the side of caution, like, it doesn't seem like Kai Lohmann is the kind of player that needs a great deal of lead-in to hitting good form.
Yeah.
He seems like the kind of guy that would just like do stuff all of the time, which is good. He's very competitive. I don't know if you caught some of the warm-up stuff where he was like racing Ashcroft and beating him and like pumping the fist, which I like to see. So he's definitely good for the team. So, but aside from that, Tunstall's fine as a sub, but it's not exactly like it seems strange to just plonk him on a wing.
Yeah.
Like, that to me doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to put him on a wing when we've got so many other players that can kind of do that. Because if you look at the guys that can play on the wing, you got Levi, Will, McCluggage, Berry. Like, Jasper can filter up there if need be. Rayner and Berry have both played on the wing. I saw Dunkley come off the wing. So you've got so many players that can do that. And whether or not he's just going into that rotation, but it seems more so like he had been put out there, whether it was, I don't know, keep an eye on Brad Hill. Don't know.
Yeah.
That's it. I think Brad Hill and Levi, that would have been a good matchup to have for Levi, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There you go. Learn a thing or two from Brad Hill here. All right, let's get into some listener questions thanks to Crisp Communications. CrispComms.co. Get your free Brisbane Lions Fancast ticket. Thanks to Abby and the team at Crisp Communications. that is available.
Did you have any changes?
No, I think if Kai's no good, then Will McLaughlin comes in, and I think leave it at that. Yeah, I don't see a reason to change anything from a team that basically smashed St Kilda. It is going to be a tough game coming up, though. All right, let's have a look at the listener questions. Look, I'm just going to lump a bunch of them all into one. Do
they have the initials of CC?
Yes, there's, here we go. Bill, Mitchell, Yeezam.
Isn't Bill Mitchell, isn't he the guy that was really good at Donkey Kong? Billy Mitchell?
That I can't tell you. That I really can't tell you. Charlie Cameron, does he need a run in the twos? Why? What's going on with his form? Would you drop him? Has he lost pace? Does he trust himself anymore? Where are we at with Charlie Cameron? Is he due for a rest? Is that the answer?
Well, I kind of, they say bury the lead.
Yeah.
I don't think that he is a player that is well suited to a run in the twos, because I think that would be detrimental to his confidence more so than he's getting the opportunities.
Yeah.
So if he's getting the opportunities in the twos, is he going to sink him? Based on this shit, no. But he's still getting the opportunities in the ones. Like, he's had some poor games, and it's been an ongoing thing. But when I still am firmly believe that his position and his expected output has changed.
Yes, definitely.
When Lincoln McCarthy got injured last year, and when Kai Lohmann came in, because Kai Lohmann, although he hasn't played this year, so that's probably where it's a little bit hard to find. We've got the flashy one and the work rate structural one, and then Calamachi sort of sits in the middle as the disruptor. Because we've had the flashy one not playing much this year because of ankles and sternums and stingers, it means that the structure one is kind of bearing the brunt of not having that.
Yep.
So, I reckon it would be a little bit different if you had Charlie Cameron and, let's say, McLaughlin had played every game and kicked 12 goals. Kicked 2 goals in his one game. So let's say he kicked 2 goals per game. Let's use the calculator thing from before. If he's kicked 12 goals and Charlie Cameron's chipped in with 3 or 4, it's probably not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But I just think the perspective around him and what he's doing for the team is still there. I think he's lost a bit of pace, yes, for sure. He's past 30 and he's a speed-based individual. It just is a little bit of a shame to see his like clinical finishing not there, because that's the sort of stuff that gets people up and it's what gets the team up. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. Even if he kicks 2 goals too, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's it. Like, we're not. None of these questions are getting asked if he finishes off his work, and that's probably the one. And he kicked 0 goals for off the back of, quite 18 months compared to what we know from him. And as you said, that's due to the role change and everything that's going on. Last week he was really quite poor, and Fags sort of gave him a chop out and said, he was sick with a bit of flu last week, and that sort of contributed to, and we got belted as well, so that doesn't help. But it's just, I don't know, I think everyone's holding on to, country roads at the Gabba. They're holding on to, expect the unexpected with Charlie Cameron to do the miraculous things, and it's probably not in his bag anymore, and that torch has somewhat been passed on to Kai Lohmann a little bit without all the panache that Charlie Cameron has had. So, people, I get it. People hold on to that because some of their best memories, are watching Charlie Cameron do freakish shit that not many others have been capable of doing.
Yeah, well, when you look at, what did he kick, 300 goals across 6 seasons?
Yeah, something like that.
Prior to this one, like, that's an unbelievable, unbelievable level of consistency. And I think when you're a team like the Lions, particularly people in Brisbane that may have jumped on board as the team became more successful, which is, understandable. But he was like the star player because there was a tangibility or a tactileness to him that probably wasn't with Lachie Neale, because they both came at the same...
Cameron
came the year before. Yeah. But when we started being a good team, we had these 2 really good players. We had other players, but we had 2 star players, and one of them was Lachie Neale, who's the sort of player that if you don't really understand football, he can go unnoticed for people that don't know what to look for. Put a little earmark that one, because I want to talk about another player that's not a Lions player. But Charlie Cameron was the one kicking bags of goals where you look at it and go, well, okay, shit, that's what he does, and that's what it does to the scoreboard. Whereas Lachie Neale just ticks over, keeps things going. And I think for a lot of people that might have jumped into the game at that point in time and maybe not gotten into the kind of minutiae of it all, are sort of left wondering, like, well, what's happened to him? But it's like a winger in rugby when they lose a yard of pace or something like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just doesn't work, and sometimes the drop off is there. And I think he can get away with the pressure and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's still a watch for me. So
yeah, and as we said last week, like, you don't know when that 4 or 5 goal game is going to come, but you do know it's going to come at some point as well. That doesn't mean he's going to be back and he's going to be doing it every week, but he can turn it on at some point, I suppose. All right, some more questions. This was from a Best Foot Forward, who I gave him a shout. Harrison, his name was. That he's got his own podcast on YouTube. He says, "Where do you see Logan Morris in?"
So is not Harrison the one? He's not the kid that kick you in the balls kid.
No, no.
Oh. I thought that kid's grown up mighty quick to now have his own podcast.
No.
Good on him.
Where do you see Harrison. Logan Morris in 5 years? Do you think he's going to be in the top 10 forwards in the league or a serviceable grinder?
Top 10 forwards. Next question.
Right. He had a...
No, that's a little bit easy. Like, I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, and I think every week that goes by where we haven't got his contract sorted is probably, it's becoming, no, it's not becoming pressing, but it's something you'd want to get sorted sooner rather than later. All right, Tom, does Day's performance shift the needle from your views? He looked tough in the ruck and made good decisions with the ball. He does move in slow motion, so I can't see him being part of the game when things turn quickly from end to end, but he's a big dude who can make room well for others. What's stopping Fagan putting Fort in instead? Is it purely just the new signing? They have to give him a certain amount of games. And we did touch on this with Sanday a little bit before. And Tom's made a bunch of great points there as well that we sort of echoed with how his game's going. I think, yes, there is an element of, we've got this guy in to do a role, so we need to give him the chance to do that role, which is probably why he's had so many games to start the season.
Yeah, I think with Day, it's just it's hard because I think if you were going to put them side by side with Fort and with Day, I don't know. It's a hard thing to pick, because you're looking at it going, well, Fort does this, Day does that. I don't know. It's a really hard one. I think I'm just going to have to defer to the coaches and the selection and go, well, it's starting to show a little bit more. He does look like he's running through quicksand at times, but I think the way we utilize our ruck is not to kind of create that overload forward. Sometimes Owie does it. He tends to know pretty well when to go forward when he's not going to be tracked, but we tend to use it more as they'll either plug the corridor or they'll drop in. So I don't think on transition it's going to matter all that much because we've got the speedy guys up there. But I don't know. I don't think it's a long-term solution, but nor would I think that Fort would be a long-term solution if you put him in as a full-time forward.
Yeah.
So Fort was, will go down as a legend of the club due to a premiership, but he hasn't played a lot of games, and I think there's probably reasons for that.
And it sucks because he doesn't get a good run in the twos across the season as well, because he's quite often the emergency and is sort of saved. Like, he didn't play on the weekend as well for the same reason. So he's a victim of circumstance, Darcy Fort, unfortunately. But as you said, like but
if he's just your backup ruckman, like your number 2 ruckman, your understudy to Big O. I mean, Max Gorn said, he's like, you wouldn't want anyone else better to be that person.
Yeah.
Just quietly, what's happened with Tom Fullerton?
What do you mean?
He was awful he wasn't particularly great for us, but you could see what he was doing. And watching him for Melbourne, it was just like, what is this guy doing?
Yep. Look, I don't know. He was never particularly fantastic at footy.
I don't know. I didn't think he was that bad. He scored some absolute bullshit left foot snap from the pocket one time. But I don't know. I thought he was pretty serviceable at some times. And he just looked lost. He was playing a full forward, I guess. But I don't know. Weird. Anyway, next. Let's not talk about Tom Fullerton. 2 more.
At what point can we... This is from Derek. At what point can we start getting worried about Kai? He just can't get a decent run at it this year. And he also chucked in there, do you reckon Dev is a chance to get back in the side this year at any point? I think Kai is simply bad luck and coincidence to start this year.
Yeah, I mean, ankle and cleaned up.
Yep.
So that's all that is. He's always been a little bit injury prone-ish, given that I think in his short career, he's had a syndesmosis, he's had the shoulder, and then... I mean, this is all in the start of the 1 year. So the thing with him is you don't necessarily, as I said, not a lot of startup time. And if he gets there in finals, you're good. It doesn't matter. So Dev Rob, I would be surprised if he plays in the team. First team.
I think he's been shoved back in the queue by Levi and Sam, probably as well, Sammy Marshall. I think Jimmy Tunstall has probably jumped him as well. I think just given by the fact that Jimmy Tunstall's played, indicates that. So, so it's a bit of a shame, and they might give him a few games towards the back end of the year, depending on our ladder position and how important the games are, to maybe boost his trade value.
I think he's a free agent though, so I don't think he has any trade value. Like, we're not going to get a comp pick for him.
Has he played long enough? He hasn't been in our top 25%. I'd have to double check that. I know he's out of contract. They might just let him walk and pick him up in pre-season, whatever. All right, last one from Rick. Do you think the Lions are overusing the handball, especially look-away handballs over the shoulder? Can you get away with that sort of stuff against the top teams?
I don't like it. It looked a bit too Fremantle in the forward 50 from time to time, particularly early on in the game when we were basically trying to just feed Calamarchi.
Yeah.
I don't love the over-the-top behind-the-head ones. I'm a grouch. I think they should be called a throw. But, the game moves on.
Sure.
Yeah, a little bit. But I guess they practice that sort of stuff, so I guess that's what the kids are doing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it has got us in trouble before, but also, that game against the semi-final against the Giants last year, we don't win that unless we switch tack and start doing, that Starcevic Berry, handball chain along the wing. Like, we'll remember that forever. That involves some over-the-head handballs. So it's risk and reward. It's risk and reward. So, yes, it can get us into trouble and when we come up against high-pressure teams. But, as I said, when that corridor is getting jammed up, like teams are learning to do against us, we need to find another way to move the ball forward. And, the whole dancing on thin ice mantra, that is part of it. To try and be a bit more daring with the ball and moving it forward. So, yeah.
It's good to see us use run, to kind of break through that. But, yeah, some of the forward half stuff was a bit, can we just, someone kick the ball into the goal?
Yep.
And I'm not one of those people that's like, just kick the ball because I understand how the game works. So, yes, I think there's never any perfect thing because you sort of sit there and go, well, they're kicking the ball too much or they're handballing the ball or the ratio's off, but it all will basically work itself out. So,
all right. Well,
do you have any questions?
No, I haven't got any questions. That's it for me. So let's talk about.
I've got a question about a player that I don't really understand. I don't watch a lot of him.
Mm.
I did obviously watch him play for Fremantle. I don't understand Caleb Sarong as a player.
What do you mean?
I just don't think he's very good.
Okay, that's it's a strange.
Unpopular and probably makes but just about every game I watch him play, he seems like he's trying to do what Lachie Neale does.
Yeah,
but way worse.
Very similar players. Yeah, definitely.
Because the Adelaide game, we've heard comparisons with Saligo.
Yep.
Being a bit more, and I can see it with Saligo much more than I can with Caleb Sarong. He's an absolute turnover maestro.
He's had a bad start to the season. Caleb Sarong's season last year was pretty bloody good.
Yeah, I guess I don't watch enough Fremantle, but it just seems like he doesn't. I'll put it this way: so his disposal efficiency doesn't match up with the amount of meters he takes in a game. Whereas you look at someone like Andy Brayshaw, who was really good, and I like Andy Brayshaw, but it's like he is much more daring with his kicks, and that's where you can understand a drop-off in efficiency. Whereas when you're doing 2-meter handballs and you're missing the target, it's like, we talked about the Lachie Neale game from weeks ago where he, 42 disposals and he made 70 meters gained or something.
That's right, that game against the Tigers.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. It's like, you shouldn't be missing targets if you're playing like that.
Yeah.
And that's where, God forbid, I can maybe dial it back on Nick Dacos a little bit because he does do daring kicks, which is why his efficiency is occasionally in the 60s. You're trying to gain... I think meters gained versus disposal efficiency should be some kind of amalgamated stat to kind of go, well, what's the risk of the kick?
Yeah.
It's like when you used to look at Daniel Rich and be like, he's gained a kilometre, and people be like, well, his disposal efficiency's not great. And it's like, yeah, because he's bombing the ball 70 meters to a contest. It's going to be hard. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just every time I've watched him, we got done by him last year and he was pretty good in that game, but just weird.
That midfield is missing Hayden Young as well, so there's been a bit of a shuffle in there.
Hayden Young is really good too. Yeah, so it's like you see Hayden Young and you see Brayshaw and you're like, yep, they're really good, and then Sarong just sort of hangs out. I don't know.
I think he's pretty good.
Maybe someone can direct me, or maybe I've just proved that I'm an absolute hack job. So
All right, let's have a look at the tipping. And we do have a new leader after a few weeks on top. Zach Attack, or Ned, has gone down to 4th. And Zach Rules, Annie H, is up the top.
Well, it's just a lot of love for Zach.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting. I had a better round, got to say.
I got 6.
I also got 6, but compared to normal, that's... Did I get 6 or did I get 7? Hold on. I got 7.
You're 7. I missed out on... So I tipped Adelaide, I tipped the Giants, and I tipped Geelong. So those are the ones I got right.
I missed GWS and Geelong.
Okay, so you tipped Freo. Sure.
I did tip Freo, which was... Yeah, it was a good game. Over-umpired and, I also nearly got the margin on the one. I got 21 points.
Oh, I had 16.
I, funnily enough, wanted to put 20, but I couldn't get the slider to go to 20. So I know you can just write it in now. Someone told me. So don't.
All right, well.
So I opted to take tipping properly seriously last round.
And look what happened. You got 7.
Well, yeah, but now I'm looking at next week and I'm like, cool, this is great. Because next week is a very hard round.
Certainly is. Let's go through it. Thursday night, Essendon, North Melbourne Marvel Stadium.
Essendon.
By?
30.
By 30, sure. I've gone Essendon by 13.
Okay.
St Kilda Freo at Marvel.
By the way, if I get done by North Melbourne in this game, I'm going to be mighty ticked off. I've gone St Kilda.
Sure.
But there's so many 50-50s here. That one, there could be a late change.
I've gone Freo on that.
Yeah, because there was a late change last week where I swapped from Richmond to Melbourne because of the curfew, which I got to say, I think the curfew is funnier than if he'd gone to prison.
Okay, sure.
I think it's funnier, in terms of you're having to miss games because you have to be at home.
What I will say is
funnier.
It'll be very interesting when the back half of the season fixture gets dropped, how many day games Richmond gets, and if that is factored in at all.
Well, they probably should be getting day games, though, because they'll be in the graveyard. So,
sure.
Yeah, I don't think the AFL should do them any favours, but it is Richmond, so who knows? Anyway, so the next one, so St Kilda and Fremantle, Bulldogs, Port, and this is at Ballarat, right?
Yes, it is.
See, I think this is much more 50-50 than it's given credit for.
The Dogs have looked bloody good the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, they have. I've tipped the Dogs, but it's, Zach Butters, close to home.
Sure.
As close to home as he's going to get, Bacchus Marsh. Then we got Adelaide Carlton.
At Adelaide Oval.
They've gone Adelaide.
Collingwood Cats at the G.
See, this is another one that I think is much more 50-50. I've tipped Collingwood.
Melbourne West
and then
Coast
this one I think is pretty 50-50.
Well, the West Coast did a number on them last year over at Optus. That was the Harley Reid game.
So I've tipped West Coast.
I see. This one's a tough one as well. Sydney Giants.
I've tipped Sydney.
Sydney.
Okay. I don't know why. Just have.
Hawthorn Richmond. Surely you've gone Hawthorn there.
Yep.
And then the Q clash to finish off on Sunday night. I know you've tipped the Lions. I'm going to say this on the podcast right now. I have tipped the Suns.
Well, why are you doing this?
I think the Suns are going to beat us.
All right, fair enough. You disappoint me.
Yeah, look,
I've tipped all the home teams. All the home teams. I mean, you can't see shit on that, but all the home teams, which is, I don't like that, but that's what we've done.
It is going to be a tough game. This Q clash, that Gold Coast midfield is quite scary at the moment. Matt Rowell is playing bloody good footy. Touk Miller always gets up for a Q clash. Ben King is playing bloody amazing footy as well. Bailey Humphrey's come along a way.
Do you remember when St Kilda people were like, back when they got
Max King?
Max and the Suns got Ben, they were like, oh, in 2 years, Ben's going to come down to St Kilda and it'll be both Kings at St Kilda. It's like, sucked in St Kilda. Sucked in, seriously.
They've got no Kings. It's gonna be.
Speaking of St Kilda, just before we go on, I want to talk to you about. I'm not a superstitious person.
Okay.
But I want to talk to you about 3 people. This is going to be weird, and we might cut this out of the podcast. So Caminiti, Nathan Murphy, and Lincoln McCarthy.
Sure.
So all 3 people that were involved in Murphy's career end.
Yeah.
With the Caminiti concussion and the Link McCarthy one. Since that, Link McCarthy's had 2 ACLs, and Caminiti continues to play football. What voodoo is he putting out there, Caminiti? Because if that's the trade-off we've gotten from this, I don't think it's very fair.
Okay, that is very strange.
Just reiterating, I'm not superstitious. Although I think voodoo is pretty weird. But yeah, so something weird's going on, and that's strange. Anyway, Q Clash.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough game. The Gold Coast look really, really good. It was easy enough to say that they hadn't beaten anyone. They did lose to Richmond, which was throwing me off. But that performance against Sydney today was up there. Like they were getting their ass handed to them, and then they said, "You know what? Fuck this," and just slammed on 12 goals and did them. Yes,
they did. It was a little bit worrying. I was sort of listening to it because I was a bit ticked off that they were playing so poorly. But it's created a lot of heat going into this week, surely. It's got to be other than the inaugural one, right? It's got to be the biggest Q Clash ever, right?
It's definitely one of them, yeah. Like this, it is a shame we both dropped a game leading into it because it was sort of shaping up to be, both undefeated Queensland teams. We got pantsed by Collingwood and they got done by Richmond. So strange there. There's interesting matchups all over the ground to think about with this one.
Yeah, they've got their forwards are a bit of a problem between King, Walters, that other guy,
Ethan Reid,
Ben something. No, that's King.
Yeah,
the kind of gangled guy that everyone calls a small forward.
Oh, Ben Long.
I knew it was a Ben something.
Yeah.
Why is he talked about as a small forward? He looks normal sized.
He's a small medium, I suppose. He's just anyone that's not a key position forward is, I guess, small forward.
I reckon he's taller than I reckon he'd be pretty close to Logan Morris in height.
Yeah, probably.
Call Logan Morris a small forward. I don't know. Matchups around, what are they like in terms of crummers?
Yeah, well, like I said, Bailey, Humphreys come along, Anderson, Rowell, like Khaleesi's there, Graham, they've all stepped up. And their 2 halfbacks they brought in, Noble was huge today, and Daniel Rioli's playing good footy as well. So they've got talent all over the park.
Noble got a lot of possessions when they were not doing so well. He ended up with 35 odd.
Yeah,
I
think it was
because I think he had 17 in the first quarter. So, I mean, if Noble ends up with the ball in hand, I'm not too worried about that, and I know I'll probably come to rue that. Rioli, but they've got 2 pretty genuine jets in the back line. Key defense stocks. Collins is really good.
Collins, they've got Hewland. I really like.
I like Ollie Hewland. Yeah.
Will Powell is a highly underrated footballer. And then they've got Mac Andrew down there as well.
That's how can you forget about him?
Yeah.
I mean they'll be right up for this because I mean we did the double over them last year.
Yep.
And they probably we're the first team to beat them at People's First when we really had no right to, and the reverse of that one was the old ACL Classic, which we probably also shouldn't have quite done as well as we did. But yeah, I mean they're trying to harness the old Detroit Pistons with the way they're kind of being a bit unsociable. I don't hate that.
I think it's good for them.
Yeah, they need a little bit of
And they're going to bring it on Sunday.
Yeah, and we need to know that. So we're coming off, an extra day's break?
Yep.
So that's fine. Obviously, neither team are travelling, although the drive is a little bit horrible.
Long weekend in Queensland on a Sunday, so yeah, it should be fine. Yeah, it's gonna be a good game, and they got Lockie Weller, who's back after his knee concerns now as well, and playing good footy along sort of half-back wing. He's not one to be underestimated as well. So there's only a few players in their bottom six that I'm sort of like, even Joel Jeffrey, who I would go, where's he sort of at? Like, he's still playing good footy. Ainsworth had a quiet day today, but he can turn it on. Butterig as well down back. Flanders.
They've just got a good team.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
And it's something that hasn't really happened for a very ever, basically, where you're looking at the bottom six going, well, they're actually pretty serviceable.
Yeah.
I think when you're doing that to a team, you're in a good spot. So good on them. Really don't like Damien Hardwick.
No, I know.
Really don't like Hardwick. It'll be a good game. I hope it's a good game. I hope it's not like dour,
Yeah. No, I think it'll be a hot contest. I'm looking forward to it.
Are we like? Is it Sunday Arvo? Sunday Twilight or
Sunday night? Yeah, 7:00.
Sunday night.
Yeah.
Oh, Sunday prime time. Nice.
Yeah.
I don't hate that. That's good.
Yeah, long weekend in Queensland is good.
What's the
Labor Day?
What's with all these holidays?
Yeah.
So you've had like Easter, then Anzac Day, then go back to work, you absolute slackos.
All right, let's finish this off. I will never get tired.
It sneaks up on me. It sneaks up on me every week.
It is time for the wheel. It is time for the wheel. Last week was a good one. Chris Johnson, Oscar McInerney, great head-to-head battle there. So,
who ended up winning that one?
I think Chris Johnson took that one out.
Yeah, I mean he should have, but so you're picking or passing
yes,
first?
So I'm going to spin this wheel. Luke Power. I'm going to hold on Luke Power.
I really feel like you've like doctored these results, hey? Because I'm going to end up with let's see. I'm going to end up having to like pull for.
I can't wait till you spin
Jack
up Jared
Jack
Lyons.
Redden or someone like that. Sorry, who?
I can't wait till you spin up Jared Lyons. All right, so I've got little Chip Power. You've got the Shermanator. One of the best rigs in the AFL.
Oily boy.
Yeah. Remember there would be like a couple of games a year that Justin Sherman would inexplicably just have this outrageous fake tan.
He's probably on Milana. He's probably on Milana Town and then gave it to Essendon. This is a prototype. This is really annoying. Again.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to talk about Justin Sherman because I think he's shit.
Yeah, he certainly had moments. In those periods of this segment has quickly turned into me trying to like lift your players up. Then that period of time where it was sort of like our midfield revolved around Michael Riscatelli and Sherman and the like. It was fine then.
I'm losing all my I had a good one with Justin Leppich, but I'm losing all these like great actual anecdotes that I would have about the players you keep getting that like are direct personal things. So,
Well, I mean, Luke Power. Luke Power hit 300 games in the end, didn't he? When he moved across to GWS, because I think he played like 280 odd for us before he went over to GWS, and I think he may have hit the 300 while he was over there. Now he's assistant at Carlton. Obviously, one of the greatest, midfield part of that midfield in the early 2000s, premiership player, all the accolades to go with that. Did he make any All-Australians, Lukey Power?
I believe he did.
Yeah.
I'm saying that based on feeling rather than actual knowledge or research. But I think he might have been a half-back when they were just cramming people in.
Yeah.
So,
He did. He got to 302 games all in all. The 2004 All-Australian team, it was. There you go.
What a serviceable guy.
And he won the AFL Assistant Coach of the Year in 2021 as well, so there you go. What a guy. Obviously, stiffed out of the Brisbane Lions in the end when Vossi, I don't know, got a god complex, and unfortunately he got traded to GWS. So,
what were the reasons why that happened?
I think,
I know I can understand the ones with you can understand the Fev Bradshaw situation.
I think Lukey Power was a little bit perturbed with how that all unfolded, and I think, listening to Vossi, down the line, I think he says probably the one thing he does regret is how he handled things with Luke Power in the end, and how that all unfolded. So, yeah, it was a bit of a pisser, but still one of the greats.
I don't know what to say about Justin Sherman, to be honest. He had terrible hair.
He looks like he smells.
Yeah, he looks like a kid that you would not want to be friends with at school because he'd get you in all sorts of trouble.
Oh, he looks like
he'd throw you so far under the bus.
Oh, yeah, he looks like he throws rocks at trains or something like that.
Yeah.
Just that sort of shit.
He was pretty quick, played for the Bulldogs, had a cool nickname. Cool, really, really liberally applied there. Yeah, fuck off with your wheel.
It'll be back next week, and I look forward to seeing your face when it pops up on the screen then. You're muted again, I believe. You muted yourself? Oh, there you go.
I'm going to have to put up a poster on the top that just says, remember the wheel. Just so that I can at least, deny you that base pleasure of seeing my face when this all kind of pans out. Yeah. I feel like you've got two wheels, one, the good wheel and the bad wheel.
Mate, they're all on the wheel. They're all on the wheel.
I know, but I don't know. I don't understand really much about how this shit works. Could be all sorts of heinous behind the scenes nonsense going on here. So it could be predetermined, like the wrestling.
It could be.
Anyway,
it's not.
I wish it was.
I do the wheel
because it would be much more. It would be a much easier way to look at my own pain and shortcomings as a Lions fan.
All right, well that'll wrap things up. Q Clash this Sunday night is going to be huge. Oh, and I should have mentioned this at the start of the show, like I promised myself I would. We've got some shirts. We've got our first line of shirts, the Brisbane Lions Fancast shirts.
Oh. I thought you were going to say you've got 2 tickets to the game or something like that.
No, Brisbane Lions Fancast shirts. The links are available, brisbanelionsfancast.com.au. Go and bloody buy them.